Question 1. With the advent of complex information ecosystems in public institutions, Mr. Allen, the records manager at a national archive, is tasked with digitizing thousands of historic records. However, many of these documents are handwritten and some are faded due to age. Mr. Allen is considering using optical character recognition (OCR) to reduce manual data entry, but is unsure if it will maintain information fidelity. Which approach should Mr. Allen prioritize under ISO 13028-2010 to ensure both accuracy and compliance? A. Apply OCR to all records indiscriminately to speed up the process. B. Use OCR only on machine-printed documents with high-quality scans. C. Skip OCR and rely on manual indexing for all records. D. Convert all documents to TIFF format before applying OCR, regardless of condition. Answer. Correct answer. B. Use OCR only on machine-printed documents with high-quality scans. Explanation. ISO 13028-2010 emphasizes information accuracy and integrity. OCR a valuable tool but should only be applied where image clarity and font consistency allow for reliable character recognition. Handwritten or degraded documents can produce significant recognition errors, undermining metadata quality and retrievability. OCR's effectiveness aligns best with high-resolution scans of machine-printed records. TIFF format may be used for archiving, but applying OCR blindly or too unsuitable for or images contravenes best practices under the Standards Annex A. Question 2. Among the various reasons institutions digitize records, which primary objective aligns most directly with the guidelines set out in ISO 13028-2010A? To permanently replace paper records and eliminate all paper archives. B. To improve access and retrieval while preserving record integrity. C. To reduce employee workload through automation. D. To reduce data storage costs by eliminating physical records. Answer. Correct answer. B. To improve access and retrieval while preserving record integrity. Explanation. ISO 13028-2010 identifies improved accessibility, retrievability, and security of records as central goals, with a strong emphasis on preserving the authenticity and integrity of digitized content. The standard does not promote elimination of paper records unless legally and procedurally justified, while cost reduction and efficiency may be outcomes. They are not the primary driving purposes under the ISO framework. Question 3. A demonstrated by the digitization project led by Is Fatimain, a health regulatory authority. Her team must identify which paper records to digitize first due to budget limitations. According to ISO 13028-2010, which prioritization strategy is most aligned with international best practices? A. Choose records based solely on their age and historical value. B. Digitize only records that are physically deteriorating. C. Select records that are high use and critical for daily operations. D. Randomly select records across departments to ensure fairness. Answer. Correct answer. C. Select records that are high use and critical for daily operations. Explanation. ISO 13028-2010 recommends a risk-based and value-based approach to record selection. High-use, legally significant or business-critical records are prioritized for digitization due to their impact on efficiency and continuity. Age or physical deterioration alone may not determine relevance. Randomization and fairness are not applicable principles under record management priorities. Question 4. From the perspective of data security, Mr. Zheng's organization is digitizing sensitive financial records and must establish user-level access protocols for the resulting digital archive. What does ISO 13028-2010 recommend as key measure in securing digital records? A. Limiting access through metadata tagging only. B. Embedding passwords in the digital images themselves. C. Implementing access control and user authentication. D. Encrypting only externally stored documents. Answer. Correct answer. C. Implementing access control and user authentication. Explanation. The ISO 13028-2010 framework highlights access control, authentication, and audit trails as critical to ensuring digital security. Embedding passwords into files is risky and not scalable. Metadata alone doesn't enforce access. Proper access control ensures only authorized personnel can access, modify, or delete records, preserving authenticity, confidentiality. Question 5. To illustrate this point, Rivera's digitization team is determining the proper file format for long-term archival of medical records. A debate between popular image formats and structured document formats. Which of the following formats is most aligned with ISO 13028 2010 archival quality recommendations? A. JPEG for compressed images. B. TIFF for high-resolution images with minimal compression. C. Docs for text-rich documents. D. PNG for flexible, scalable images. Answer. Correct answer. B. TIFF for high-resolution images with minimal compression. Explanation. TIFF is the preferred archival format per ISO 13028 2010 because it supports lossless compression, high image quality, and metadata embedding. JPEG is compressed and lossy. Docs is not. A stable archival format, and PNG, though lossless, lacks archival adoption in records management. TIFF stability supports long preservation. Question 6. The underlying principle of digitization ethics requires institutions to avoid compromising record context and meaning. Cho discovers that her team renames in digital files using abbreviations to speed up indexing. How does ISO 13028 2010 guide such naming conventions? A. Abbreviations are acceptable as long as they're consistent. B. Names should reflect the original title or identifier of the record. C. File names can be random if documented in a lookup table. D. Standard operating systems naming constraints should define the format. Answer. Correct answer. B. Names should reflect the original title or identifier of the record. Explanation. ISO 13028 2010 mandates file naming that retains the original meaning or identifier of the record to preserve provenance and usability. Abbreviations may introduce ambiguity or loss of context. Lookup tables add complexity and risk. Standard system limitations are secondary to archival integrity and should drive naming practices. Question 7. In response to a digitization audit, Amara was asked to provide the metadata schema library used for its digitized manuscripts. According to ISO 13028 2010, which of the following metadata frameworks is commonly applied to enhance discoverability and record management? A. MARC. B. Premise. C. METS. D. MODS. Answer. Correct answer. B. Premise. Explanation. ISO 13028 2010 supports the use of metadata frameworks such as Premise, preservation metadata, implementation strategies for digital preservation, especially concerning the provenance, authenticity, and right management of records. While MARC and MODS are bibliographic, Premise specifically addresses preservation metadata crucial for audit trails and compliance. Question 8. Throughout the course of developing a digitization plan, Doyle must assess existing record-keeping systems across departments. What should be his primary focus according to ISO 13028 2010? A. Check if all departments use the same software. B. Evaluate record formats, accessibility, and retention practices. C. Ensure all records are stored on cloud platforms. D. Determine how many documents are physically stored. Answer. Correct answer. B. Evaluate record formats, accessibility, and retention practices. Explanation. ISO 13028 2010 emphasizes a systematic assessment of current record keeping, including metadata consistency, file formats, access controls, and retention schedules. Uniform software is less important than interoperability. Cloud storage is not mandated. Physical count is insufficient without understanding implications of the records management system. Question 9. When considering fragile war documents being digitized, the National Museum Hossein is tasked with defining proper handling techniques. Under ISO 13028 2010, what handling method is most appropriate for such sensitive materials? A. Use gloves and gently flatten documents under heat. B. Apply pressure to ensure documents lay flat on the scanner. C. Use overhead scanners to avoid contact-based damage. D. Scan each document at low resolution to speed up the process. Answer. Correct answer. C. Use overhead scanners to avoid contact-based damage. Explanation. ISO 13028 2010 requires non-invasive scanning for fragile or historic records. Overhead or planetary scanners reduce contact, preserving document integrity. Applying pressure or heat can cause irreversible harm. Low-resolution scans compromise detail and may violate archival standards. Handling must prioritize conservation principles. Question 10. The effectiveness of a digitization strategy can often be seen in the continuity of access during unexpected disruptions. Is as institutions suffered ransomware attack that encrypted their digital repository. She asks why ISO 13028 2010 recommends to maintain availability. What strategy should she have implemented before the attack? A. Store all records in single on-site encrypted server. B. Implement an offline, regularly updated backup system. C. Use shared network drive with basic user access controls. D. Print all digitized records as hard copies and file them. Answer. Correct answer. B. Implement an offline, regularly updated backup system. Explanation. ISO 13028 2010 advocates for disaster recovery planning, including offline backups, to ensure resilience against cyber threats. Relying solely on on-site or networked systems increases exposure. Physical printing is not a viable modern backup method. Regular, secure, and redundant backups are essential to maintain access and integrity. Question 11. In a modern context of mass digitization, is Delgado's preparing a digitization plan for her city's land records, which are stored across several departments in various formats. Her challenge is to ensure consistency, long-term usability, and compliance with ISO 13028 2010. What should be her first step in defining the scope and ensuring integration across departments? A. Consolidate all digital outputs in single shared database. B. Define consistent metadata elements and technical requirements. C. Choose single file format that all departments must follow. D. Begin scanning the easiest records to digitize to build momentum. Answer. Correct answer. B. Define consistent metadata elements and technical requirements. Explanation. ISO 13028 2010 stresses that standardizing metadata and technical specifications across units ensures interoperability, discoverability, and system integration. Consolidating outputs or choosing a format too early without context leads to misalignment. Starting with the easiest records is operationally tempting, but not strategic. Planning starts with clear scope and standard definitions. Question 12. The development of quality control procedures is a key component in ISO 13028 2010 implementation. Istabati, working in a public records office, notices some digitized images are skewed or poorly lit, affecting readability. Which quality control strategy should be implemented to prevent such issues? A. Review every 10th image for compliance post-digitization. B. Conduct real-time quality assurance at the point of scanning. C. Rely on scanner automation to correct any irregularities. D. Delegate image review to interns after project completion. Answer. Correct answer. B. Conduct real-time quality assurance at the point of scanning. Explanation. Real-time quality control during scanning allows immediate correction of issues, ensuring that image quality meets ISO 13028 2010 standards. Delayed review increases rework and data loss risks. Automation can assist but is insufficient alone. Intern-only review lacks accountability and is not aligned with standards emphasizing record integrity. Question 13. The foundation of a successful digitization project is accurate resource allocation. Nandita is budgeting for a province-wide initiative involving millions of pages. Stakeholders are pushing to cut scanning quality to reduce costs. Which of the following reflects the best practice under ISO 13028 2010 for balancing cost and quality? A. Lower scanning resolution to 150 dpi for all records. B. Reduce staffing and automate all metadata tagging. C. Use 300 400 dpi for important documents and document the rationale. D. Skip metadata tagging for non-critical records to save resources. Answer. Correct answer. C. Use 300-400 DPI for important documents and document the rationale. Explanation. ISO 13028. 2010 recommends minimum 300 API for legibility and long-term use, particularly for detailed or official records. Balancing resource allocation means applying standards flexibly but within acceptable limits. Documentation ensures transparency. Reducing metadata or staff arbitrarily risks future usability and regulatory compliance. Question 14. Through careful analysis of a failed digitization effort at a financial institution, it was found that the digitized records could not be retrieved reliably due to inconsistent naming and indexing practices. Which of the following would have prevented this issue under ISO 13028? 2010. A. Using document color as a basis for indexing. B. Implementing a standardized indexing schema. C. Allowing users to label files as they prefer. D. Applying folder names without individual file metadata. Answer. Correct answer. B. Implementing a standardized indexing schema. Explanation. ISO 13028. 2010 highlights the importance of structured indexing and metadata consistency. A standardized schema ensures retrieval across users and systems. Arbitrary or visual categorization methods lack long-term reliability. File naming without metadata is insufficient for enterprise-level access and discovery. Question 15. Based on the information gathered during a feasibility study, ISTA Osdurk realized his digitization project lacked stakeholder buy-in. Departments resisted participation, citing uncertainty in objectives and responsibilities. What should have been done at the project planning stage under ISO 13028, 2010? A. Assign each department their own project manager. B. Limit the number of departments involved initially. C. Define and communicate clear roles, objectives, and scope. D. Begin implementation and adjust responsibilities later. Answer. Correct answer. C. Define and communicate clear roles, objectives, and scope. Explanation. ISO 13028. 2010 stresses that clear planning, defined scope, stakeholder engagement, and communication are essential to success. Ambiguity in objectives creates resistance and inefficiencies. Early clarity ensures alignment and accountability across stakeholders. Delayed responsibility leads to project failure or mismanagement. Question 16. To better understand preservation risks, ISCOR is comparing online and offline storage methods for digitized public service records. She is concerned about both cost and long-term data integrity. Which approach best aligns with ISO 13028 2010 recommendations? A. Offline storage with regular integrity checks and disaster recovery plans. B. Sole reliance on third-party cloud providers with no local backup. C. Use of portable drives stored in individual offices. D. Keeping all records accessible in real time to reduce latency. Answer. Correct answer A. Offline storage with regular integrity checks and disaster recovery plans. Explanation. Offline or cold storage with scheduled integrity verification ensures long-term preservation, particularly when disaster recovery strategies are also in place. ISO 13028 2010 recommends protection against hardware failure, cyber threats, and accidental deletion. Sole cloud reliance or decentralized storage increases vulnerability and lacks standard oversight. Question 17. When evaluating the merits of digitization projects in academic archives, ISTA questioned whether records of student publications should be prioritized over administrative correspondence. What prioritization principle is consistent with ISO 13028, 2010? A. Prioritize based on institutional prestige. B. Prioritize based on frequency of use and legal value. C. Prioritize based on ease of scanning. D. Prioritize based on colorfulness and visual appeal. Answer. Correct answer. B. Prioritize based on frequency of use and legal value. Explanation. ISO 13028. 2010 promotes value-based and risk-based prioritization, focusing on legal, operational, and informational importance. Aesthetic or reputational criteria are irrelevant from a records management standpoint. Frequent use documents reduce physical wear and increase digital access utility. Align core ISO principles. Question 18. While examining a municipal digitization effort, it was noted that no disaster recovery plan existed for the digital archive. Mr. Ionescu was concerned about legal implications. What critical ISO 13028 2010 requirement was violated in this case? A. Digitization speed expectations. B. Color scanning fidelity. C. Backup and recovery planning. D. Use of standardized file names. Answer. Correct answer. C. Backup and recovery planning. Explanation. ISO 13028 2010 mandates that recovery mechanisms be established to prevent data loss from system failures, disasters, or cyber attacks. Without this, an institution cannot guarantee record integrity or access, leading to legal exposure. Speed and color issues are technical details, and disaster planning is a core compliance requirement. Question 19. In contrast to a purely technical digitization team, IS Petrovic wants to ensure ethical considerations are embedded into their national museum's digitization process, especially for indigenous documents. Which of the following represents an ethical practice under ISO 13028 2010? A. Digitizing culturally sensitive records without consent. B. Selling digitized cultural content to fund further digitization. C. Consulting stakeholders before digitizing culturally significant records. D. Withholding digitized records indefinitely to maintain exclusivity. Answer. Correct answer. C. Consulting stakeholders before digitizing culturally significant records. Explanation. ISO 13028 2010 highlights the importance of ethical handling, especially with culturally sensitive or indigenous records. Stakeholder engagement respects rights, customs and ownership. Non-consensual digitization, monetization, or unjustified access restrictions can violate ethical principles and international norms. Question 20. Considering the evidence, Mr. Santos is tasked with applying metadata standards across a multilingual collection of scanned government documents. Which of the following best supports both interoperability and international standards as recommended in ISO 13028 2010? A. Use of a proprietary schema customized for local use. B. Application of Dublin Core for basic descriptive metadata. C. Embedding metadata in document footers. D. Omitting metadata for non-English documents. Answer. Correct answer. B. Application of Dublin Core for basic descriptive metadata. Explanation. ISO 13028 2010 supports Dublin Core for general-purpose, internationally accepted metadata that improves discoverability, language neutrality, and system interoperability. Proprietary formats limit scalability. Embedding in footers is unreliable for structured indexing. Multilingual metadata is essential for inclusive access. Question 21. By evaluating the digitization outcomes of a large environmental INGO, IS Key discovered that several digital files were overwritten due to inconsistent file naming during ingestion. She now needs to revise the file naming convention. According to ISO 13028 2010, what naming principle should be followed to avoid such errors? A. Use abbreviations to keep file names short and efficient. B. Include date, title, and unique identifiers in a structured format. C. Create one folder per document to eliminate naming conflicts. D. Use version numbers only when changes are made. Answer. Correct answer. B. Include date, title, and unique identifiers in a structured format. Explanation. ISO 13028 2010 emphasizes the use of clear, structured, and unique file names that incorporate elements like date, record type, or unique codes. This ensures retrievability, version control, and avoids overwriting. Abbreviations may reduce clarity, folder-only strategies are inefficient, and version alone don't ensure uniqueness. Question 22. Contrary to popular belief, Mr. Louis, a project manager in a university archives department, believed that digitization meant the physical records could be destroyed immediately. What does ISO 13028 2010 advise in such a scenario? A. Physical records should be destroyed as soon as digitization is complete. B. Records can be destroyed only after legal, business, and archival requirements are evaluated. C. All records must be preserved permanently, regardless of digital conversion. D. Records should be sent to off-site storage after digitization without review. Answer. Correct answer. B. Records can be destroyed only after legal, business, and archival requirements are evaluated. Explanation. ISO 13028. 2010 highlights the need to evaluate legal, historical, evidentiary, and administrative values of original records before destruction. It supports digitization for access, not necessarily as a replacement unless compliant with legal retention schedules and evidence. Immediate destruction violates archival best practices. Question 23. In the absence of documented backup procedures, a data corruption incident at Isteris Land's public archive led to the loss of critical land registry scans. What would have most effectively mitigated this risk under ISO 13028? 2010A. Store backups on external USPs in the same office. B. Send backup copies to an unverified cloud service. C. Implement redundant, geographically separated backup systems. D. Restrict staff from accessing backup systems to prevent error. Answer. Correct answer. C. Implement redundant, geographically separated backup systems. Explanation. ISO 13028. 2010 advocates for disaster preparedness, recommending redundant off-site backups to protect against hardware failures, natural disasters, and cyber attacks. Local USPs are not secure or scalable. Cloud services must be vetted. Restricting access without planning doesn't solve the recovery problem. Question 24. Focusing specifically our OSRA implementation, Chen's library is digitizing ancient legal manuscripts. She's aware that standard OSRA tools often fail with historic fonts or non-Latin scripts. According to ISO 13028, 2010, what is the most suitable approach? A. Rely on OSRA results regardless of error rates. B. Perform OSRA selectively and use manual transcription when accuracy is critical. C. Avoid OSRA altogether to save time. D. Outsource OSRA AI vendors without human validation. Answer. Correct answer. B. Perform OSRA selectively and use manual transcription when accuracy is critical. Explanation. ISO 13028. 2010 promotes accuracy and usability in digitized records. OSRA should only be used when results meet acceptable quality thresholds. Manual intervention is necessary for documents with unique characters, degraded ink, or complex structure. Accuracy is more important than automation speed. Question 25. From multiple perspectives, the digitization of court records must comply with security, privacy, and authenticity requirements. Malik is creating user access protocols for digitized court transcripts, which ISO 13028 2010 align control would best prevent unauthorized use. A. Use open online access to promote transparency. B. Add password protection to individual PDFs. C. Set up tiered access levels based on user roles and legal clearance. D. Print access logs monthly for archiving. Answer. Correct answer. C. Set up tiered access levels based on user roles and legal clearance. Explanation. ISO 13028. 2010 calls for controlled access, especially for sensitive or legally protected information. Role-based authentication ensures that only authorized personnel can access restricted records. Transparency must be balanced with legal obligations. PDF passwords are weak and logs alone do not control. Question 26. With respect to image capture hardware, Rachel is selecting equipment to digitize fragile museum artifacts. The team debates between flatbed scanners and overhead planetary scanners. What choice is best aligned with ISO 13028 2010 recommendations for handling sensitive items? A. Use high-speed duplex scanners to increase efficiency. B. Use planetary scanners to avoid document contact. C. Use handheld camera phones with AI filters. D. Flatten all documents before scanning with pressure rollers. Answer. Correct answer. B. Use planetary scanners to avoid document contact. Explanation. ISO 13028 2010 emphasizes minimal physical handling, especially for rare or delicate documents. Planetary overhead scanners allow image capture without direct contact, preserving material integrity. Flatbed and high-speed scanners may damage documents. Camera phones don't ensure archival quality output. Question 27. When analyzing digitization performance metrics, ISTA finds inconsistencies in metadata across departments that hinder unified access. What should be implemented under ISO 13028-2010 to ensure consistency and searchability? A. Let each department define its own metadata structure. B. Use a shared, standardized metadata schema like Dublin Core. C. Reduce metadata fields to improve input speed. D. Focus metadata efforts only on high-priority records. Answer. Correct answer. B. Use a shared, standardized metadata schema like Dublin Core. Explanation. ISO 13028-2010 promotes interoperability and consistency, for which adopting a standard metadata schema like Dublin Core ensures effective cross-departmental access. Localized or inconsistent practices impede searchability and record retrieval. All records, not just high-priority ones, benefit from consistent metadata. Question 20. Taking into account technological risks, ISTA Idris's Municipal Council is concerned about long-term accessibility of scanned records stored in proprietary file formats. Which format does ISO 13028-2010 recommend for long-term sustainability and vendor independence? A. PDF or TIFF due to standardization and archival integrity. B. JPEG for smaller file size and speed. C. Docs because it is editable. D. MP because it supports embedded data. Answer. Correct answer. A. PDF or TIFF due to standardization and archival integrity. Explanation. ISO 13028-2010 strongly supports non-proprietary, standardized formats for long-term access. PDF and TIFF ensure data can be preserved and accessed over time without software dependencies. JPEG is lossy and not archival. Docs is not intended for fixed record presentation. Question 29. A critical examination of ISTA Hassan's digitization project revealed that only 5% of the scanned files had associated metadata. Users complained they couldn't locate records in the system. What is the most immediate corrective action aligned with ISO 13028-2010A? Enhance search tools to compensate for missing metadata. B. Apply retrospective metadata entry to improve discoverability. C. Ask users to submit search queries manually to librarian. D. Delete records lacking metadata to avoid confusion. Answer. Correct answer. B. Apply retrospective metadata entry to improve discoverability. Explanation. ISO 13028-2010 defines metadata as essential for record retrievability, even if initially omitted. Retrospective metadata assignment is crucial to ensure access. Search tool upgrades cannot compensate for missing data. Deletion is not only inefficient, it may violate retention laws. Question 30. Historically speaking, digitization efforts often fail due to insufficient training. ISTA Duong noticed that staff made frequent scanning errors and skipped metadata fields. How should this issue be addressed in compliance with ISO 13028-2010A? Introduce automated scanners to eliminate staff input. B. Provide structured, ongoing training and competency evaluation. C. Rotate staff weekly to reduce errors through exposure. D. Outsource digitization to avoid internal capacity building. Answer. Correct answer. B. Provide structured, ongoing training and competency evaluation. Explanation. ISO 13028-2010 emphasizes staff competency in all areas of digitization, including image capture and metadata entry. Structured training ensures adherence to guidelines and quality control. Automation cannot replace human judgment. Outsourcing can be helpful but doesn't address internal knowledge gaps for sustainable practices.